The morning light spilled through the tall glass windows of the penthouse on Central Park West. Everything looked perfect. Coffee brewing in the Nespresso machine, a half-open MacBook on the marble counter, and a Tiffany vase filled with white lilies. But perfection is often the cruelest disguise. Claire Donovan moved slowly, one hand resting on her 6-month pregnant belly, the other brushing the edge of the countertop. She had been feeling dizzy lately, the kind of exhaustion that comes from pretending everything is fine when it isn't. Her husband, Lucas Hale, a tech millionaire who built his AI startup from a Manhattan garage, was already halfway out the door. His suit was sharp, his tone colder than the morning air. "I'll be home late. The board dinner might run past midnight," he said, not looking up from his Apple Watch. Claire nodded, her voice soft. "You forgot your coffee." He waved it off. "I'll grab one at the plaza." Then the elevator doors closed, leaving behind the faint echo of his cologne and the ache of distance that had been growing for months. Minutes later, Claire noticed something out of place. On the marble island, gleaming under the morning light, sat Lucas's iPhone 15 Pro Max, face up, unlocked. He must have left it after checking his flight details. The screen lit up again. A message popped up from Vanessa. Her heart froze. She shouldn't look. She knew she shouldn't. But curiosity has its own heartbeat, and hers was pounding louder than ever. The next message appeared. "Ultrasound went great. Doctor says he's healthy. You'll be such a great dad." Claire's breath caught, her vision blurred. For a moment she thought she misread it, but then came another notification. Photos, black and white ultrasound images captioned "Our baby boy." A sharp pain shot through her chest. Lucas's mistress? Pregnant? Her trembling hands unlocked the screen fully. Threads of messages flooded up, each one slicing deeper. "We need to make the story public after your wife signs the prenup update. You're the face of future tech families, Lucas. No scandals. Don't worry about Claire. I'll handle her." Claire scrolled, numb. The timestamps revealed everything. Late-night messages during his board meetings, affectionate texts while she waited home, planning baby showers that weren't hers. Her stomach tightened. The baby kicked. On the kitchen table beside the iPhone sat a small velvet box with a Cartier logo. She had assumed it was for her. Now she knew it wasn't. She closed her eyes. Images flashed, Lucas promising love beneath fairy lights at their wedding, Lucas holding her when her father died, Lucas whispering, "You're my forever." Lies, beautifully packaged lies. The apartment felt colder, emptier. She tried to breathe, but her chest burned. For a long moment she just stood there, silent except for the rhythmic beeping of the refrigerator. Then something inside her shifted. Not rage, not despair. Something quieter, sharper, clarity. She walked to her MacBook Air, opened the email she had once used for freelance clients, and began forwarding every message, every photo, every digital scar to a private folder named Truth. Then she unplugged the phone charger, placed Lucas's iPhone face down, and whispered, "You just lost everything." Claire grabbed her coat, stuffed a few essentials into her canvas tote, a passport, her prenatal documents, and the ultrasound of her own baby, the one he had forgotten to care about. The city outside was waking up, horns echoing through the streets of Manhattan. She stepped into the elevator. Her reflection stared back. Tired eyes, pale lips, but unbroken spirit. As the doors slid shut, the phone on the counter lit up again. New message. "Can't wait for you to hold him tonight. Vanessa." And that was the moment Claire Donovan decided she would never come back. The Uber driver glanced at Claire through the rearview mirror, sensing something off. Her hands were clenched around a small tote bag as if it carried her entire life. Outside, the Manhattan skyline blurred by in streaks of gold and gray. She had no clear destination, only one thought pulsing in her mind. Don't go home. The car stopped in front of an old red brick building in Brooklyn Heights. Claire had been there once before, helping a client redesign a small apartment. The landlord remembered her kindness and still owed her a favor. She rang the buzzer. "Top floor," a sleepy voice answered. Inside, the apartment smelled of old books and instant coffee. The windows overlooked a quiet street, nothing like the sterile glass box she had just fled. She sank onto the couch, holding her belly. The baby moved, a soft reminder of why she had to keep going. Her phone buzzed. Private number. Lucas. She watched the screen until it went dark. Then came an email notification. Subject line, "Where are you? Don't do anything stupid." The tone wasn't concern, it was control. Even in her absence, he wanted to dictate her moves. She ignored it and opened her laptop. Her savings account showed 0. Every shared card frozen. Lucas must have anticipated this. She checked her PayPal. Nothing. For the first time, the weight of isolation hit her fully. Her breathing quickened. She tried calling her mother in Ohio, but hesitated halfway through dialing. Her mother had warned her years ago, men like Lucas love power more than people. Claire had defended him then. Now the truth hurt worse than betrayal. It made her feel foolish. She walked to the window. Down below, a young couple laughed, holding Starbucks cups, unaware that love could turn into survival overnight. The cold air slipped through a crack in the glass. Brushing her face like reality, whispering, "You're on your own now." Her laptop chimed again, a new message from her old friend, Tori Bennett. They hadn't spoken in years, not since Lucas ruined Tori's career at a finance magazine for investigating his company. The message was short. "I heard rumors. Are you safe?" Claire typed slowly, hands trembling. "Not yet." She hit send, then opened a drawer in the tiny kitchen. A faded copy of Women Who Run with the Wolves lay there, left by the previous tenant. She opened a random page and read, "A woman who rises from the ashes will not be the same woman who burned." Her throat tightened. She wanted to believe it. She decided to take inventory. 1 suitcase, 2 changes of clothes, prenatal vitamins, a single credit card in her name with a $400 limit, and 1 unborn child whose future depended on her courage. Another buzz, a new email, this time from Lucas's attorney. "Per your husband's request, please confirm your current residence for delivery of updated marital agreement." Claire almost laughed. Even now, he thought he could rewrite her life like a contract. She deleted the message, then powered off the laptop. The walls of the apartment seemed to close in, but there was something fierce inside her now. She whispered to her baby, "We're not victims, we're survivors." Outside, snow began to fall, soft and silent over the Brooklyn rooftops. The city glimmered like a lie she no longer believed. She pulled a blanket around her shoulders, feeling the first calm breath she'd taken all day. In the distance, sirens echoed, a reminder that in New York, everyone runs from something. But Claire wasn't running anymore. She was preparing. Her phone buzzed once more. A text from Tori, "Meet me tomorrow morning. Don't tell anyone." Claire looked out into the falling snow and whispered, "Tomorrow begins the truth." The next morning, the city woke beneath a blanket of gray clouds. Claire wrapped herself in an old coat that smelled faintly of detergent and rain, then stepped into the cold. Her breath fogged the air as she crossed the street toward a Starbucks on Montague Street. The place buzzed with early commuters, each lost in their own little storm of caffeine and deadlines. She picked a seat by the window, trying to look ordinary, though her heart was anything but. A few minutes later, the door chimed. Tori Bennett walked in, her blonde hair tied back, a camera bag slung over her shoulder. Time had sharpened her. She carried the aura of someone who had survived her own war. When her eyes met Claire's, the tension melted for a moment. "God, Claire?" Tori whispered, hugging her tight. "I almost didn't believe it when I got your message." Claire managed a faint smile. "Believe it. I'm officially a headline waiting to happen." They sat down. The hum of espresso machines filled the silence. Claire's hands shook slightly as she stirred her latte. Tori noticed. "You're safe now?" "Safe is a stretch," Claire said. "I'm invisible for the moment." She told her everything, from the forgotten iPhone to the ultrasound photos, from the locked accounts to the threats disguised as concern. When she finished, Tori's expression had shifted from sympathy to calculation. "You have evidence?" Claire nodded. "Screenshots, messages, transfers to her, Vanessa Cole, all in a cloud folder." Tori leaned back, processing. "Vanessa Cole, the influencer?" "The same, and she's pregnant, but it's not his." The words hung in the air like a crack of thunder. Tori blinked. "How do you know?" Claire hesitated. "One of the messages mentioned another man, someone named Dylan. A director, I think. Lucas doesn't know yet." Tori's reporter instincts lit up. "That's dynamite. If this gets out, it's not just a scandal, it's corporate suicide." Lucas Hale built his empire on image. Family man, visionary husband, investor favorite. Claire's throat tightened. "I don't want fame. I just want freedom." "You can have both," Tori said softly. "But you need to play it smart." Let me help. Claire looked at her, uncertain. The last time they had crossed paths, Tori had lost her job after publishing a piece about Lucas's questionable funding sources. Lucas had called her unstable and vengeful. Now, the same woman sat before her, extending a hand. "Why help me?" Claire asked. Tori smiled without humor. "Because he burned me too, and because watching men like him fall, it never gets old." A flicker of something, hope maybe, sparked inside Claire. She opened her tote, took out her MacBook Air, and showed Tori the folder named Truth. Inside were screenshots, bank receipts, and voice memos. Tori scrolled through them, her reporter's mind already mapping connections. "This is gold," Tori murmured. "But we don't drop it yet. Not until we have confirmation about the fake pregnancy timeline. I can trace hospital records, quietly." Claire exhaled. "You think we can expose him?" Tori met her eyes. "Expose him? Honey, we can bury him." The two women sat in silence for a moment, the air between them charged with both fear and determination. Outside, the wind pushed snowflakes against the window, scattering light like tiny explosions. Claire placed a hand on her belly. "He thinks I'm broken." Tori's voice was steady. "Good. Let him. The moment he underestimates you is the moment he loses everything." Claire's phone vibrated. A new message. "Don't test me, Claire. I can find you anywhere." She looked at Tori, her face pale but composed. "He's already looking." Tori sipped her coffee and smiled grimly. "Then let's make sure he finds exactly what we want him to." That night, the wind howled through Brooklyn like a warning. Claire sat cross-legged on the worn couch, her laptop glowing in the dark. Tori paced the room, coffee mug in hand, her reporter brain running faster than the city's trains. The air smelled of burnt toast and adrenaline. "We need proof," Tori said finally. "Something that ties Vanessa's pregnancy to someone else. Words won't hold in court." Claire opened her email and searched the backup folder she'd created before leaving Manhattan. Every digital footprint of Lucas's betrayal lived there. Texts, screenshots, voice memos. Her eyes caught one message chain that she hadn't read before. The sender's name, Dylan R. She clicked. The conversation was raw and intimate, far different from Lucas's sterile tone. "I can't keep lying about the baby. You promised me, Dylan. Don't ruin this. I need Lucas to believe it's his." "You're playing with fire, Vanessa." Claire stared, stunned. The truth unfolded like a cruel gift. Vanessa wasn't just manipulative, she was desperate. The baby wasn't Lucas's. It belonged to someone else. Her pulse hammered. She turned the screen toward Tori, who froze mid-step. "Holy hell," Tori whispered. She faked it. "That means everything he's built, his image, his investors, his perfect husband act, is about to implode." "But if he finds out first," Claire said, "he'll twist it, make me look delusional." Tori shook her head. "Then we move faster. We get timestamps, cross-check Dylan's phone number, and verify the clinic." Within an hour, Tori had called one of her old contacts at a private medical billing agency. Using the limited information from the message, they found a record under Vanessa Cole, patient of Dr. Harper, Lenox Hill Hospital. The father listed on the file was left blank. No insurance from Lucas's company. Tori grinned. "Got her." Claire's relief was short-lived. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Lucas. "Stop hiding. I'm filing for guardianship if you're unstable." Guardianship. That word sliced through her. He wasn't just angry. He was preparing to take her child. She felt dizzy. "He's trying to paint me unfit," she whispered. Tori leaned in. "Then we give him something worse to worry about." They started assembling a digital trail. Vanessa's emails, transaction receipts, private messages linking Lucas's corporate funds to her wellness campaign. The total surpassed $200,000, enough to trigger an internal audit. But Claire hesitated. If this leaks, it's not just him, it's his employees, investors, people who had nothing to do with this. Tori's expression softened. "Claire, he weaponized your silence. You're not destroying him. You're stopping him." The baby kicked again, as if agreeing. Claire rubbed her belly and whispered, "I just want a safe life for us." Tori nodded. "Then start by saving yourself." At 2 a.m., they encrypted all the files and uploaded them to a secure drive named Phoenix. Claire watched the progress bar crawl to 100%. Her hands trembled, but her heart felt lighter than it had in weeks. When they finished, Tori handed her a prepaid phone. "Use this from now on. No GPS, no tracking. If Lucas calls, let him talk to a wall." Claire managed a small laugh. "You sound like a spy," Tori winked. "Journalists are just spies with deadlines. Outside, the snow had stopped, leaving the streets wet and silent. Claire looked out the window, watching reflections dance in the puddles below. "He thinks he owns every narrative," she said quietly. "Tomorrow, the story begins to change." Tori raised her mug in a toast. "To truth." Claire touched her belly again and whispered, "And to freedom." By dawn, the city stirred awake with the sound of horns and the smell of rain-soaked asphalt. Claire sat by the window, wrapped in a gray blanket, staring at the skyline like it held answers. Her laptop rested on her knees, open to her frozen bank accounts. Every number read the same: 0. The man who had sworn to protect her had erased her existence with a few keystrokes. Tori came in with 2 coffees. "Still nothing?" "Nothing," Claire whispered. "He's locked me out of everything. The apartment, the savings, even my health insurance." Tori frowned. "He's cornering you financially. Classic control tactic." Claire gave a hollow laugh. "He always said money made marriage simpler." The phone on the table buzzed, a call from an unknown number. Tori gestured for her not to answer. Claire ignored her and picked up anyway. "Claire?" Lucas's voice was smooth, calculated. "You need to stop this disappearing act. You're scaring everyone. Come home, and we'll fix this." Her grip tightened. "You froze my accounts, Lucas. You think that's fixing something?" His tone darkened. "I froze them because I don't know what you'll do. You're emotional, unpredictable. I'm protecting our child." She almost laughed. "Protecting? You're trying to take control of everything, even my heartbeat." "Be reasonable, Claire. You know you can't survive without me." She hung up before rage made her say something she couldn't take back. The silence afterward felt deafening. Tori leaned forward. "He's not negotiating. He's preparing a case. Guardianship, maybe mental instability. He wants to paint you as unfit before court." Claire pressed her hands against her belly, trying to calm the trembling. "He's not getting my baby. I'll sleep in the streets before I let that happen." Tori smirked. "You won't need to. I know a lawyer who hates men like him. She's a shark." Before Claire could reply, her laptop chimed, the new email from Harper and Moss Law. She opened it and read aloud. "Per Mr. Hale's request, please provide your current address for delivery of updated marital terms." Her voice cracked. "He's serious. He's really doing it." Tori grabbed her phone. "Then we fight smart. Let me make a few calls." While Tori stepped out, Claire wandered to the mirror. Her reflection looked unfamiliar. Eyes darker, posture straighter, something fiercer behind the exhaustion. She touched her stomach. "We're okay," she whispered to the baby. "He won't win this time." Minutes later, Tori returned. "I spoke with a friend in finance. She can help us trace where Lucas moved your assets. If he used company money for personal transfers, that's fraud." Claire blinked. "Fraud, as in criminal?" Tori nodded. "As in prison, if we play it right." The idea felt surreal, but strangely satisfying. For the first time, Claire saw a crack in Lucas's armor, a place she could hit back. By evening, they met Tori's contact, a quiet woman named Nina, who worked in banking compliance. Nina analyzed the statements Claire had saved before her accounts froze. "These look like layered transfers," she said. "Hidden through shell vendors. If any of these paid Vanessa, he's done." Claire's heartbeat quickened. "You can prove it?" Nina smiled faintly. "I can trace every cent." When they left the office, the rain had stopped. The streets shimmered under the glow of streetlights. Tori slipped her hands in her coat pockets. "You know, Claire," she said, "he's not expecting a fight. He's expecting a breakdown." Claire looked up at the sky, the city lights reflecting in her eyes. Then he's about to learn the difference. The wind caught her hair as she whispered to herself, "He took my money, but he forgot. I still have my story." Snow flurries swirled through the Brooklyn air as Claire stepped into the small medical office on Atlantic Avenue. The walls were painted a calming sage green, and the faint scent of lavender drifted from a diffuser on the counter. She clutched her file of medical records like a lifeline. Across the desk, a man with kind gray eyes looked up from his tablet. "Claire Donovan?" he asked. She nodded. "Dr. Mason Green?" He stood to shake her hand. His voice was warm but steady, the kind that could quiet chaos. "Tori said you needed someone who understands both stress and pregnancy." She wasn't exaggerating, was she? Claire gave a half smile. "You could say life's been eventful." He gestured for her to sit. "Why don't we start there?" For a moment she hesitated, but something about his calm presence disarmed her. She told him everything. The betrayal, the frozen accounts, the manipulation, the sleepless nights. Mason listened without interrupting, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. When she finished, silence lingered. Then he said quietly, "Claire, what you're describing is not just betrayal, it's coercive control. He isolated you financially, emotionally, psychologically. That's abuse." The word stung. "Abuse makes it sound like I'm weak." Mason shook his head. "No, it makes him dangerous." Claire's throat tightened. She looked away, blinking hard. "I just keep thinking, maybe I should have seen it sooner." He leaned forward slightly. "Victims always think that. But the truth is, people like him train you not to see it." She took a shaky breath. "What do I do now?" Mason opened her medical chart. "First, we take care of your health. You've been under severe stress. That can affect the baby. I want to schedule weekly check-ins and document everything. If he tries to challenge your stability, we'll have medical proof that you're coherent and capable." Claire's eyes widened. "You'd do that?" "Absolutely," he said. "And I'll refer you to a legal advocate who works with pregnant women in abusive relationships. You're not alone anymore, Claire." For the first time in weeks, she felt something close to safety. "Thank you," she whispered. He smiled. "Let's make sure your baby arrives in peace, not fear." After the appointment, Claire walked outside feeling lighter. The air was crisp, and the snowflakes melted against her cheeks. For the first time since she'd left Lucas, she wasn't trembling. That night, she called Tori. "He's helping me," Claire said. "Mason, he's documenting everything. If Lucas tries to pull a mental health card, it won't work." Tori exhaled. "Good. We'll need that. His lawyer's been sniffing around the press, trying to frame you as unstable." Claire's stomach turned. "He's really going that far?" "He's terrified," Tori said. "When men like Lucas lose control, they go for the jugular. But don't worry, we've got proof of his lies." Later, alone in her small apartment, Claire pulled out her journal. On the first page, she wrote, "I'm not broken, I'm rebuilding." She sipped her tea, staring out at the snow-lit street. Somewhere across the river, Lucas was probably in his luxury condo, still believing she was powerless, but she wasn't. Not anymore. Her phone buzzed, an email from an unknown address. The subject line read, "I know what Vanessa did." Her pulse quickened. She opened it. Inside was a single sentence. "You deserve to know who the real father is." Her breath caught. She stared at the screen, her reflection shimmering in the glass. Outside, a siren wailed through the night, echoing like a warning. Claire whispered to herself, "Then let the truth come." By the following week, the storm Claire had been bracing for finally broke loose. It started with a headline that spread across every social feed in Manhattan. "Tech millionaire Lucas Hale expecting child with PR star Vanessa Cole." The article featured a glowing photo of Lucas and Vanessa leaving the Hamptons in his black Mercedes, both smiling like their sins had been airbrushed away. Claire saw it while waiting at Dr. Mason's clinic. The words felt unreal, like a movie script about someone else's life. Her fingers went cold around her phone. Beneath the article, comments poured in, thousands of strangers celebrating the perfect power couple. No one knew the wife, still legally married to Lucas, was sitting in a waiting room, 6 months pregnant and forgotten. Mason stepped out of his office, noticing her expression. "You saw it?" She nodded, forcing a bitter smile. "The world finally knows, I guess." He sat beside her. "How are you holding up?" "I thought seeing it would break me," she said quietly. "But it just confirms what I already knew. He's not hiding anymore. He's replacing me." Mason's voice softened. "No, he's exposing himself." Later that afternoon, Tori burst into the apartment, laptop in hand. "Claire, it's everywhere. Every outlet's running the same story. But here's the part that's interesting. None of them mention that he's still married. Someone's feeding them sanitized press releases." Claire frowned. "You think Vanessa's behind it?" Tori snorted. "Oh, absolutely. She's been selling the fairy tale pregnancy to every lifestyle blog that'll pay. I've already reached out to one of her assistants. The timing of this is too perfect. It's damage control for Lucas." Claire rubbed her temples. "He wants to destroy me publicly before I can defend myself." "Exactly. So we get ahead of it." Tori opened her laptop. "We leak the truth, but not through gossip channels. I'm talking credible business media. Imagine this headline: Lucas Hale's company funds used to finance mistress's PR baby. The investors won't care about romance, they'll care about money." Claire hesitated. "Won't that hurt innocent people at his company?" Tori looked at her steadily. You didn't choose this war. He did. We're just telling the truth. Claire stared at the screen. Lucas's smile in those glossy photos burned into her mind. He looked untouchable, confident, the man she once thought could build the world for her. But now she saw the cracks, the arrogance, the fear behind the show. Mason's words echoed in her head. He's not hiding anymore. He's exposing himself. Do it, she whispered. Tori's fingers flew across the keyboard. Within minutes, files from their encrypted drive, bank transfers, private invoices, emails with Vanessa's name, were ready to send. She hit upload. Hours later, the first domino fell. A small finance blog posted a story hinting at financial inconsistencies within Lucas's startup. By midnight, the story was everywhere. The next morning, stockholders demanded an internal audit. Lucas's PR team scrambled. A reporter called him live outside his Manhattan office. Mr. Hale, is it true company funds were used to support your partner's pregnancy? His face stiffened. Cameras flashed. No comment, he snapped before ducking into his car. Claire watched it all unfold on TV, heart pounding. Justice didn't come fast, but it was coming. Her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. You started a war you can't win. Come home before it's too late. She typed back with shaking fingers. You already lost, you just don't know it yet. Tori glanced over her shoulder, smirking. That's my girl. Claire smiled faintly, her voice steady. Let the world see the man behind the mask. The morning after the scandal broke, Lucas Hale's empire began to wobble like a glass tower in an earthquake. His company's headquarters on Madison Avenue looked the same. Mirrored glass, clean lines, and confidence. But inside, panic spread faster than caffeine. Executives whispered in hallways, lawyers flooded conference rooms, and journalists camped outside the entrance, hungry for a statement. Lucas stood in his corner office, jaw clenched, staring at the headlines on his MacBook Pro. Investors demand clarity after alleged misuse of funds. His reflection in the screen looked older, thinner, desperate. Vanessa's voice echoed from the couch behind him. You need to get ahead of this, she said, scrolling through her phone. Say it's a smear campaign. Blame your ex, your unstable wife. Everyone already loves a comeback story. Lucas turned sharply. Don't call her that. Vanessa raised a brow. Why not? That's what you told me she was. Fragile. Emotional. You said she couldn't handle your success. Lucas's face hardened. I said she struggled, not that she was crazy. Vanessa smirked. Same difference, babe. The public doesn't care about details. He looked at her, realizing for the first time how empty her eyes were. Everything about her was curated. Her perfect tan, her designer dress, the way she spoke like she was auditioning for sympathy. And suddenly he wondered, had he just built his destruction with his own hands? Meanwhile, across the river, Claire sat in her small Brooklyn apartment watching the chaos unfold on CNBC. The host discussed the company's plummeting stock, while footage of Lucas ignoring reporters played on loop. She sipped lukewarm tea, her belly heavy beneath the blanket. For the first time she felt no fear, just clarity. Tori called. He's bleeding investors, Claire. 20% down since the story dropped. But listen, there's more. A whistleblower inside his company just contacted me. They claim Lucas approved those payments himself. We'll have documentation within 24 hours. Claire's heart skipped. That's enough to end him. That's enough to bury him. Tori corrected. That evening, Vanessa posted a photo on Instagram. Smiling, hand on her belly, caption "Truth always wins." The comments exploded with support and hate alike. Claire scrolled through them, almost pitying her. The woman was lying to millions, clinging to a fantasy. But every lie eventually costs its maker. Back in his penthouse, Lucas's phone buzzed non-stop. Investors, lawyers, PR agents. His CFO, Brian, entered with a folder. We've got a serious problem. The audit team traced funds from our marketing budget to Vanessa Cole's personal accounts. You authorized the transfers. Lucas's throat went dry. I didn't know they were personal. She said it was for brand partnerships. Brian's expression was grave. It's still misuse of company assets. If this leaks further, the SEC will get involved. Lucas sank into his leather chair, rubbing his temples. Find a way to fix it. Brian hesitated. There might not be a fix this time. When Brian left, Lucas stared at his phone, tempted to call Claire. Somewhere inside, guilt flickered, small but real, yet pride crushed it instantly. He texted Vanessa instead. Pack your things. We need to disappear for a while. Vanessa's reply came fast. Disappear? I thought we were going public. What happened to your confidence? Lucas didn't answer. He closed his laptop, poured himself a drink and stared at the skyline. For years, that view had made him feel invincible. Now it looked like a mirror of everything collapsing. In Brooklyn, Claire placed her hand on her belly and whispered, "Let him drown in the lies he built." Outside, the wind rattled the windows. Somewhere far above Manhattan, thunder rolled, a sound like justice approaching. 2 days later, Manhattan buzzed like a nest of hornets. Reporters gathered outside Hale Technologies, their cameras flashing through the glass lobby. Words like fraud, scandal, and embezzlement filled every morning broadcast. Lucas Hale, once the golden boy of Silicon Alley, was suddenly radioactive. At the same hour, in Brooklyn Heights, Claire and Tori huddled over a small kitchen table covered in printouts. The apartment smelled of black coffee and printer ink. A storm brewed outside, thunder grumbling across the sky like the city's disapproval. Tori was typing furiously on her laptop. "Our contact came through," she said. "These emails show Lucas personally authorizing transfers to Vanessa's PR firm, money straight from investor funds." Claire scanned the pages. "How can people like him think they'll never get caught?" Tori smirked. "Because for too long, they didn't." Claire's phone buzzed. Another email, this time from Lucas's lawyer. "Mrs. Hale, please respond regarding your mental fitness evaluation in custody terms." She sighed. "He's still trying to paint me as unstable." Tori's eyes glinted. "Then let's make the world see who's really losing his mind." By noon, Tori uploaded a set of encrypted files to a confidential journalist server. Within an hour, major outlets picked up fragments, internal emails, suspicious invoices, and screenshots of Lucas's private exchanges with Vanessa. But Tori saved one last card, the most explosive. She turned to Claire. "This next part's dangerous. The source gave me an audio file from inside Lucas's office. It's him threatening his CFO to alter the books." Claire froze. "You're kidding." Tori shook her head. "It's crystal clear. But if we release it, he'll know it came from inside. Someone could get fired, or worse." Claire thought for a long moment. "People like him build their power on silence. It's time the silence ended." Tori nodded slowly. "Then we do it." They listened once more before sending it. Lucas's voice filled the room. "You make those numbers match the narrative, or I'll find someone who will. Do you understand me?" The recording was damning. Within hours, the internet erupted. Hale's scandal trended nationwide. By evening, the company's board announced a temporary suspension pending investigation. Across the river, Lucas sat in his dim apartment, the sound of his own downfall echoing from the television. Vanessa paced the floor, panicked. "You said this was under control," she cried. "Shut up," he hissed. She threw her phone at him. "You're not the man you pretend to be. You can't fix this." He turned toward her, eyes cold. "You think I built this empire to let it burn because of a weak little woman?" Vanessa laughed bitterly. "Funny, that's exactly what you did." She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. For the first time in his adult life, Lucas felt fear. Not of losing money, but of being exposed. Meanwhile, Claire sat quietly on her couch, watching the same broadcast that played in his apartment. A commentator read part of the leaked transcript aloud, analyzing each word. She should have felt triumphant, but what she felt was peace. Mason called to check in. "You've seen the news?" "Yes," she said softly. "It's happening. You okay?" "I'm better than okay. For the first time, I can breathe." He smiled on the other end of the line. "That's what justice feels like at the beginning." She looked out the window. Lightning flashed over the skyline, slicing through the dark clouds. Somewhere in that storm, Lucas Hale's empire crumbled, piece by piece, truth by truth. Claire whispered to herself, "You built your castle out of lies, Lucas. Now it's time to live inside the ruins." The city awoke the next morning to the sound of scandal echoing through every screen in America. Financial news anchors wore grim expressions as they dissected the Hale Technologies collapse. On CNBC, a scrolling ticker read, "CEO under investigation for fraud and misuse of funds." Shareholders demanded answers, and the once untouchable Lucas Hale had become a national headline for all the wrong reasons. In the small Brooklyn apartment, sunlight filtered through the blinds, striping the floor like prison bars. Claire sat on the couch, wrapped in a wool blanket, scrolling through the coverage. For a long time she said nothing. Then quietly, He's finally paying for it. Tori looked up from her laptop. The board's convening today. Word is they'll force him to resign. Claire's hand trembled slightly as she set her tea down. Do you think he knows it came from me? Oh, he knows, Tori said with a grin. But proving it? That's another story. The television flickered to a live feed. Lucas was standing outside his office building, flanked by reporters. His once immaculate suit looked rumpled, his tie loose. Cameras flashed as a journalist shouted, "Mr. Hale, do you have a statement about the audit?" Lucas's jaw flexed. "These accusations are false," he said. "This is the work of a vindictive ex-wife trying to destroy my career. I've always acted with integrity." Tori snorted. Integrity? That man couldn't spell the word. Claire stared at the screen. The calm mask on Lucas's face looked familiar, too familiar. It was the same mask he had worn when he convinced her she was the problem. For a heartbeat, the room felt smaller, her breath shorter. Tori noticed. "Hey, breathe. He can't touch you anymore." Claire nodded slowly. "You're right, but I need to do one last thing." She opened her laptop and began typing. Mason had told her to keep a personal record, dates, times, every form of manipulation and abuse. But now she wrote something different, a statement, not for court, but for herself. "I believed in a man who built his power on my silence. He used my love as leverage, my fear as currency. But truth doesn't need permission to exist. It survives." When she finished, she sent the document to her lawyer with one line in the email: "For custody and closure." That evening, Lucas returned to his penthouse, the city below buzzing with his downfall. The lights of Manhattan stretched endlessly, but none of them warmed the emptiness inside. On the marble counter sat a single envelope, addressed to him in handwriting he recognized instantly. Claire's. He hesitated, then tore it open. Inside was a copy of their wedding photo. Across the back in neat script she had written, "You lied to everyone, including yourself. Now the truth will raise our child." For the first time, Lucas felt the sharp weight of regret, but it came too late. His phone buzzed. A call from his lawyer. "The board's voting to remove you, Lucas. Step down now or they'll press charges." He dropped the phone on the counter, staring at the city he once ruled. All the power, the money, the applause, it meant nothing now. Across the river, Claire stood by her window, holding her belly as her baby kicked softly. "We did it," she whispered. "We're free." Tori raised her mug. "To freedom, and to the fall of the mighty." Claire smiled faintly, her voice steady for the first time in months. No one escapes the truth forever. Outside, thunder rolled again, but this time it sounded like applause. The summons arrived on a rainy Thursday morning. A pale blue envelope, neat handwriting, the state seal embossed on the corner, Family Court of the State of New York. Claire's stomach twisted as she read the words. Preliminary hearing for custody and marital assets. Claire Donovan Hale versus Lucas Alexander Hale. Her reflection in the window looked calm, but her pulse betrayed her. The baby shifted inside her belly, a small flutter reminding her she wasn't alone. Mason had warned her that Lucas would fight until the last breath of his pride. And now, the battlefield wasn't social media, it was the courtroom. Tori helped her gather documents into a worn leather folder. Medical records, financial transfers, screenshots, the letter from her doctor verifying emotional stability. "He'll try to rattle you," Tori said. "Don't let him see fear. He feeds on that." Claire smiled faintly. "I've run out of fear." The courthouse on Center Street smelled of old paper and rain. Reporters waited near the steps, whispering as she entered. Cameras flashed, but she kept her head high. The security guard nodded kindly. Maybe he'd read her story, or maybe he just saw the exhaustion behind her grace. Inside, the courtroom buzzed. Lucas was already there, crisp suit, expensive watch, flanked by two lawyers. He looked at her briefly, that familiar smirk tugging at his lips, the same smirk he used when he thought he still controlled her. Claire met his gaze, expression unreadable. The judge entered. "We're here to discuss temporary custody and financial matters pending divorce." Lucas's attorney rose first. "Your Honor, my client is deeply concerned for the safety of his unborn child. Mrs. Hale has a documented history of emotional instability, running away, erratic behavior, lack of financial discipline." Claire's lawyer, a sharp woman named Andrea Monroe, stood calmly. "Your Honor, my client fled an abusive, coercive marriage. We have evidence of psychological manipulation, financial isolation, and deceit. Mrs. Hale has maintained full prenatal care under medical supervision. She handed over Mason's affidavit. The judge adjusted her glasses. Dr. Green's report indicates Mrs. Hale is stable, cooperative, and entirely fit for motherhood. Lucas shifted uncomfortably. His attorney objected. The doctor could be biased. He's personally acquainted with Mrs. Hale. Andrea smiled coolly. Then perhaps we should also question Mr. Hale's objectivity, since he's been photographed publicly with another woman while still married. A murmur rippled through the room. Lucas's jaw tightened. Claire remained silent, hands folded over her stomach, a statue of quiet defiance. Andrea continued. We've also submitted proof that company funds were used to support Mr. Hale's mistress, Vanessa Cole, over $200,000 misappropriated. We believe these actions demonstrate Mr. Hale's moral and financial irresponsibility. Lucas sprang up. That's not true. She set me up. The judge's gavel struck the wood. Mr. Hale, sit down. The silence afterward was suffocating. The judge looked between them and finally said, until the investigation concludes, Mrs. Hale will retain primary residence and decision-making authority for her unborn child. Financial assets frozen until further notice. Lucas paled. For once there was no press release, no boardroom spin, no narrative left to twist. Just a man losing everything, piece by piece. Claire exhaled shakily. The gavel hit again. Court adjourned. As people began filing out, Lucas whispered hoarsely, You'll regret this. Claire turned to him, her voice soft but lethal. No, Lucas, you will. Outside, rain poured over the courthouse steps, but it felt cleansing, not cold. Tori handed her an umbrella. You were brilliant in there. Claire smiled through tears. I didn't fight to win, I fought to stop losing. She looked up at the gray sky and whispered to her child, We're almost free. 2 weeks after the court hearing, the empire of Lucas Hale began to collapse in slow motion. What started as whispers became a full-scale corporate meltdown. Every morning brought a new headline. Every night, another investor withdrew. Hale Technologies under federal investigation. CEO accused of fraud and misconduct. His name, once printed on Forbes covers, was now poison. Inside the Madison Avenue headquarters, the air smelled like panic and burnt coffee. Assistants packed boxes, lawyers shouted over phone calls, and security guards hovered near the elevators like vultures circling a carcass. Lucas stood in his glass office, eyes hollow, watching as employees carried out stacks of documents. The skyline outside mocked him, bright, alive, and indifferent. His CFO, Brian, walked in looking exhausted. The board's unanimous. You're being removed effective immediately. Lucas's voice cracked. I built this company from nothing. Brian sighed. And you destroyed it with your ego. I'm sorry, man. He left without shaking hands. Lucas stared at the city one last time, remembering the early days, sleeping on office floors, pitching to investors, promising he'd change the world. Somewhere along the way, he had traded vision for vanity, and now the world was collecting its debt. That afternoon, news broke that federal agents had seized company records. Television cameras swarmed the front entrance as Lucas was escorted out by security. A reporter shouted, Mr. Hale, do you regret your actions? He said nothing, just pulled his coat tighter and disappeared into the chaos of midtown traffic. Across the river, Claire watched the footage on her TV. She sat on her couch, legs curled under a blanket, the baby's steady kicks pulsing beneath her ribs. Her emotions were tangled: relief, sorrow, vindication. She had loved him once. But the man she loved had buried himself under greed long ago. Tori burst through the door, holding her phone. You're not going to believe this. Vanessa just did a live stream. She's crying, claiming she was misled and that the baby isn't Lucas's after all. Claire blinked. She admitted it? Tori grinned. Oh, she admitted everything. Said she was pressured to keep up the lie. Said Lucas promised to leave you but never did. It's all over the internet. Claire leaned back, exhaling. So the truth finally speaks for itself. Tori nodded. And guess who called her out in the comments? The real father, some film director named Dylan Raines. He posted the DNA results live. For a second, Claire didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Poetic justice, she whispered. Meanwhile, in his penthouse stripped of furniture and pride, Lucas poured himself whiskey from a half-empty bottle. His lawyer's voicemail replayed in his mind. The SEC wants to talk. Cooperate or they'll press charges. He didn't reply. He didn't know how to fight a battle that required honesty. The phone buzzed again. Vanessa's number. He ignored it. Then came another buzz, this time from an unknown contact. The message read, "You can't bury the truth forever, Lucas. Some debts come due." He threw the phone across the room. It shattered against the marble floor, the sound echoing like a verdict. In Brooklyn, Mason arrived with takeout and a gentle smile. "How's the warrior mother tonight?" Claire smiled weakly, watching a king lose his crown. Mason sat beside her. "You didn't destroy him, Claire. He destroyed himself. You just stopped pretending he was good." She nodded, eyes glistening. "I just wanted peace." "You've earned it," he said softly. Outside, New York glittered like a field of fallen stars. For the first time, Claire felt the city breathing with her, not against her. Somewhere across the river, Lucas Hale faced his reckoning, but she had already found her freedom. The next morning, New York looked washed clean after a night of heavy rain, but for Lucas Hale, the city had never seemed darker. His penthouse, once a symbol of power, felt like a museum of broken promises. Boxes filled the hallways, furniture covered with white sheets. Every echo reminded him of the empire that used to hang on his name. He stood by the window, staring out at Central Park, when a knock came at the door. A courier handed him a slim manila envelope. "Delivery for Mr. Hale. No return address." Lucas frowned, signing automatically. The label bore his full name and home address, written in neat handwriting he didn't recognize. Inside, a single flash drive and a typed note. "Some ghosts don't stay buried. You should have told the truth." He plugged the drive into his laptop. A video file opened, security footage from his own Hamptons property. His blood ran cold. The clip showed him and Vanessa arguing near the pool, her shouting, "You promised me he'd believe it was his." Then another man appeared in the frame. Dylan Raines, the director. Lucas's voice on camera was unmistakable. "If anyone finds out this baby isn't mine, we're all done." His mouth went dry. Someone had recorded everything. He called Vanessa immediately. She picked up, sobbing. "Lucas, I swear I didn't send it. Dylan's gone rogue. He's threatening to sell the footage to the press unless I pay him." "Pay him?" Lucas shouted. "With what money? Everything's frozen." Her voice cracked. "Then maybe you should ask your wife. She's the one who started this war." He hung up, chest pounding. His empire was gone, his mistress was panicking, and his ex-wife, the woman he once dismissed as fragile, was winning a war he never saw coming. Across the river in Brooklyn, Claire was in her small living room with Tori, Mason, and a woman from the DA's office. The flash drive had been sent to her first. She'd already made copies. Tori grinned. "This is it, the nail in his coffin. He admits on camera that the baby isn't his and that he covered up fraud. We can deliver this to the authorities tonight." Claire stared at the frozen image on the laptop. Lucas mid-yell, a man she barely recognized. Once, that face had been her home. Now it was her evidence. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Mason asked quietly. "This will end him completely. No redemption, no comeback." Claire's voice was steady. "He had his chances. He chose lies. I'm choosing peace." They filed an anonymous submission to the district attorney's office that night. Tori double-encrypted the files, ensuring no trace could be linked to Claire. The DA confirmed receipt within hours. By morning, federal agents arrived at Lucas's building with a warrant. Cameras swarmed again as he was led out in handcuffs, still wearing the same shirt from the night before. The clip went viral before he even reached the car. Former CEO Lucas Hale arrested for fraud and obstruction. Vanessa tried to call him, but he didn't answer. Her public apology livestream crashed under millions of comments calling her a liar, a fraud, a thief. She deleted her account that night. When Claire saw the news, she didn't smile. She simply closed her laptop and whispered to her unborn child, "Justice doesn't need celebration, it just needs truth." Mason placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's over now." Claire shook her head softly. "No, it's beginning." She stood by the window, looking at the Manhattan skyline glowing under the afternoon sun. For years, it had symbolized power. Now it symbolized survival. She whispered to herself, "He built everything on secrets, and secrets always have witnesses." A week after Lucas's arrest, the media still couldn't stop talking about him. Every channel replayed the same footage, his wrists in handcuffs, his expression defiant yet hollow. The man once hailed as the architect of American innovation had become a cautionary tale overnight. Yet behind the sensational headlines, another story was quietly forming. The story of the woman he tried to erase. Claire had refused all interview requests until now. When Tori brought her the offer from the New York Times Sunday magazine, she hesitated. They don't want a pity story, Tori explained. They want the truth. Your voice, your side. No manipulation. Just you. Claire thought about it all night. Finally, she agreed. One interview. No cameras, just words. The meeting took place in a small cafe in Brooklyn, tucked between a bookstore and a florist. Claire arrived wearing a simple cream sweater and jeans. She didn't look like the ex-wife of a fallen millionaire. She looked like someone rebuilding herself piece by piece. The journalist, a middle-aged woman named Evelyn Shaw, turned on her recorder. "Whenever you're ready," she said gently. Claire took a breath. "I didn't leave because of another woman. I left because of silence. He built a world where everything looked perfect, but I was drowning in it. I was told what to wear, what to think, what to feel. I stopped recognizing my own reflection." Evelyn nodded. "And now? Now I know that survival isn't loud. It's waking up and deciding you still matter." The cafe was quiet, except for the soft hum of conversation around them. Claire continued, her words slow and deliberate. "People ask if I want revenge. I don't. Revenge means you're still playing their game. I just wanted to stop playing." Evelyn asked, "How do you feel about his arrest?" Claire's gaze dropped to her tea. "I feel sorry for the man he could have been, but not for the man he chose to be." Outside, a few photographers waited discreetly, but Claire ignored them. The interview lasted 2 hours. When it ended, Evelyn switched off the recorder and smiled. "You're stronger than you think." "I'm not strong," Claire said softly. "I just ran out of ways to be weak." That night, Tori uploaded the final draft for Claire's approval. The headline read, "Claire Donovan, the woman who chose truth over power." Claire read the piece 3 times, each line peeling away another layer of pain. She didn't sound like a victim. She sounded free. The story went live on Sunday morning. Within hours, it went viral. Women from all over the country flooded the comments. "You spoke for all of us. This gave me courage. Finally, a story that isn't about the fall of a man, but the rise of a woman." Claire sat by her window, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. For the first time, she wasn't being defined by his name. She was her own story. Meanwhile, in a federal detention center in Lower Manhattan, Lucas saw the article printed on a folded newspaper. Her face stared back at him from the front page, serene, unafraid. The headline stabbed deeper than any sentence could. He crumpled the paper and threw it against the wall. For once, there was no one left to blame. Back in Brooklyn, Mason stopped by with coffee. "The whole city's talking about you," he said with a grin. "They're calling you the woman who turned survival into strength." Claire smiled faintly. "Let them talk. Maybe it'll help someone else escape before it's too late." She looked out the window at the skyline glittering through the dusk. The same city that once witnessed her humiliation now echoed her redemption. And for the first time, Claire Donovan whispered, "This is what freedom feels like." 3 days after her interview broke the internet, Claire received an unexpected call. A federal investigator asked if she would meet privately to discuss additional testimony regarding Lucas's case. She agreed, thinking it would be held at an office. Instead, when she arrived at the courthouse conference room, Lucas was there, escorted by 2 agents, dressed in an orange jumpsuit. Her pulse raced. She hadn't seen him face to face since the hearing. He looked smaller somehow, older, his eyes hollow. When their gazes met, 100 memories, good and bad, flashed through her mind like broken glass. "Mrs. Hale," one of the agents said, "Mr. Hale has requested to speak with you before the next deposition. You're under no obligation." Claire hesitated, then nodded. 5 minutes. The agent stepped outside, leaving them alone in a silence so sharp it hummed. Lucas spoke first. "You look different." Claire folded her hands on the table. "I am different." He laughed bitterly. "So this is it? You get your redemption story, your fame, while I rot in a cell?" "This isn't fame, Lucas," she said softly. "It's consequence." He leaned forward, voice rising. "You think you're innocent? You destroyed me." She met his fury with calm. "No, you destroyed yourself. I just stopped covering the wreckage." For a moment he said nothing. Then his tone shifted, smooth, rehearsed, the same tone that once fooled her. "We can fix this, Claire. Say you exaggerated. Say you were emotional. Help me, and I'll help you. You and the baby can have everything back." Her stomach turned. You still think everything can be bought. I built an empire, he snapped. You think I won't build another? She stared at him, pity replacing anger. You can rebuild buildings, Lucas, but you can't rebuild trust. Not when the foundations rot. His hands trembled. I loved you, he said suddenly, voice cracking. You were my balance. I just lost my way. Tears stung her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. You didn't lose your way. You sold it. The door opened. The agents returned. Lucas's lawyer signaled time was up. As they led him away, he turned once more, desperation flickering like the last spark of a dying flame. Claire, please. Tell them I'm not a monster, she whispered, almost to herself. Monsters never think they are. When the door closed, Claire's knees went weak. Mason, waiting in the hall, steadied her. You didn't have to face him, he said gently. I did, she whispered, because I needed to see the man I survived. Outside, the courthouse steps were swarmed with cameras. Tori met her halfway down, shoving a phone into her hand. You won't believe this. Vanessa just released a video confession. She admitted to falsifying documents, said Lucas pressured her. The feds reopened the case. He's not getting out anytime soon. Claire watched the clip silently. Vanessa looked wrecked, her makeup streaked, her voice shaking. I lied because I was scared. I thought he could save me. He couldn't even save himself. Tori grinned. Your truth just became federal evidence. Claire exhaled deeply, the weight of years finally sliding off her shoulders. Then maybe the world can stop worshipping men like him. Later that night, back in her apartment, she stood by the window. The city shimmered below, alive and endless. She whispered to the baby, We're almost free, sweetheart. One more sunrise. In his cell across the river, Lucas stared at the same skyline, its lights flickering through the bars. For the first time, he realized freedom wasn't about money or fame. It was something he had never known how to give. And on opposite sides of the city, two lives, once bound by lies, finally split into truth. It was past midnight when the first contraction hit. Claire woke to a sharp twist of pain, deep and rhythmic, followed by another wave that stole her breath. Rain lashed against the window, lightning flickering over Brooklyn. She grabbed her phone and called Mason. Her voice trembled. It's time. He was there within minutes, his hair damp, jacket half-zipped. How far apart? 5 minutes, she gasped. Maybe less. He nodded calmly, the practiced steadiness of a doctor taking over. We'll make it to Lenox Hill. Breathe with me. Each block felt eternal. The taxi's headlights sliced through sheets of rain as Manhattan loomed like a fortress of glass. Claire clutched Mason's hand, her knuckles white. I can't. Yes, you can, he softly. You've survived worse. By the time they reached the hospital, her contractions were fierce. Nurses whisked her into a birthing suite. The room was bright, sterile, humming with machines. Mason stayed by her side, his calm anchoring her panic. Hours blurred into one long heartbeat. Between pushes, flashes of her past flickered. Lucas's voice, the courtroom, the headlines, the fear. But then she remembered something stronger. Her own voice saying, We're almost free. Another contraction hit. She screamed, gripping the rails. Mason wiped sweat from her forehead. Almost there, Claire. One more. With a final, guttural cry, the room filled with a new sound, the tiny, perfect wail of life. The doctor smiled. It's a girl. Tears streamed down Claire's face. My Grace, she whispered. The nurse placed the baby on her chest. Warm, fragile, miraculous. All the noise in her head went silent. Mason stood back, watching quietly. For months he had seen her fight ghosts. Now he saw her reborn. She's beautiful, he murmured. Claire nodded through tears. She's everything I didn't know I could survive for. Outside, dawn began to lighten the skyline. Rain softened into mist. Mason stepped into the hall to give her privacy, but paused when he saw Tori jogging toward him, phone in hand. You need to see this, she said, breathless. On the screen was a breaking news alert. Lucas Hale pleads guilty in exchange for reduced sentence. Below it, his statement read, I accept responsibility for my actions. To Claire and my unborn child, I am sorry. Mason exhaled. He finally said it. Tori frowned. Too little, too late, but maybe it helps her heal. When Mason returned to the room, Claire was still holding her daughter. It's over, he said gently. He confessed. She didn't look surprised. He needed to lose everything before he could tell the truth. Do you forgive him? Mason asked carefully. Claire traced her baby's cheek with one trembling finger. Forgiveness isn't for him. It's for her. to grow up without hate in her world. Later, as nurses took Grace for checks, Claire stared out the window at the city skyline. The same city that had watched her crumble now watched her begin again. Tori entered quietly, setting down a bouquet of white lilies. "You did it, Mama." Claire smiled weakly. "We did it, you, Mason. Everyone who believed I wasn't crazy." Tori laughed softly. "Oh, you were crazy. Crazy brave." They stood together watching the sunrise. The clouds split open, spilling gold over the river. Claire whispered, "She came with the morning." Mason smiled. "Then she's light after the storm." Claire held her daughter again and kissed her tiny forehead. "Welcome to the world, Grace. You were born from chaos, but you'll live in peace." Outside, the rain stopped completely. The city exhaled, and so did she. The days after Grace's birth passed in a blur of soft cries, midnight feedings, and quiet gratitude. Claire stayed in a small recovery suite at Lenox Hill, her window overlooking the city that never slept. For the first time in years, she didn't feel fear when she saw the skyline. She felt peace, a fragile, newborn kind, just like her daughter. Mason visited every morning, bringing coffee and gentle jokes. Tori dropped by with flowers and gossip headlines about Lucas's trial, though she never showed them unless Claire asked. Most days she didn't. She was done living through him. One afternoon, Mason entered the room to find Claire reading aloud from Women Who Run with the Wolves. Her voice was calm, almost melodic. Grace slept in her arms, tiny fists curled against her chest. Mason smiled. "Starting her education early?" Claire laughed softly. "Just reminding her that women are born wild and strong. No one gets to tell her who she is." He sat beside her. "How's your mom doing?" "Tired," she admitted, "but happy, really happy." There was a pause, comfortable, warm. Mason studied her for a moment. "You know, Claire, not everyone comes back from what you went through, but you didn't just survive, you transformed." She smiled faintly. "I didn't think I could. Some nights I thought about giving up." "You didn't," she looked down at Grace, "because of her." Outside, snow began to fall again, slow, delicate flakes drifting past the hospital glass. The city below shimmered like something forgiven. Later that week, Claire was discharged. Mason insisted on driving her home. The small Brooklyn apartment waited, cozy and sunlit, the air smelling faintly of vanilla candles and new beginnings. As Mason carried the baby carrier up the steps, Claire paused at the door. "It's strange," she said. "This place used to feel like hiding. Now it feels like freedom." Mason smiled. "That's because it's yours again." Inside, Tori had left a welcome home surprise. Groceries, baby formula, a note that read, "You did it, warrior. Don't forget to rest." Claire laughed, then wiped her eyes. "I don't deserve friends like you two." Mason set Grace's carrier down. "You deserve exactly this, kindness that doesn't demand anything in return." That night, when Grace finally fell asleep, Claire sat by the window with a cup of tea. The city hummed quietly in the distance. Mason had gone, leaving behind a small, wrapped box on the table. Inside was a silver bracelet engraved with 3 words, "You are enough." She traced the letters with her thumb, tears stinging her eyes. No grand gestures, no pity, just truth. Her phone buzzed with an email notification. It was from the New York Times journalist Evelyn Shaw. The subject line read, "Your story changed lives." The message was simple. Hundreds of women wrote in after reading your interview. Some left their abusers. Some sought help. One said your courage saved her. Claire pressed a hand to her heart. For so long her pain had felt meaningless. Now it had purpose. She looked at Grace, sleeping peacefully in her crib. "We turned pain into something good," she whispered. "Maybe that's what healing is." Across town, in his prison cell, Lucas stared at a photo clipped from the newspaper, the one of Claire holding Grace. The caption read, "The strength of truth." For a long time he said nothing. Then, quietly, almost like a prayer, he whispered, "I'm sorry." But in Brooklyn, Claire was already beyond hearing. She closed the curtains, turned off the lights, and lay beside her daughter. The world outside was still imperfect, still cruel at times, but within those 4 walls, peace had finally found her. Spring arrived slowly in New York. Like the city itself was learning how to breathe again. For Claire Donovan, every sunrise now felt like a small miracle. Grace was 3 months old. Chubby cheeks, curious eyes, and a smile that could melt any leftover shadow. The past was still there, but it no longer dictated the rhythm of her days. Her mornings began with sunlight pouring through the window of her Brooklyn apartment. She'd sit by the crib, sipping coffee, humming softly as Grace kicked her legs in delight. The air smelled faintly of lavender and baby powder, a scent she would later come to call the smell of freedom. One morning, Mason stopped by carrying 2 Starbucks cups and a paper bag of croissants. "Doctor's orders," he said, smiling. "Eat something that isn't cereal." Claire laughed. "You're worse than the nurses." He placed the coffee on the table, glancing around. "You've made this place beautiful. I like the new colors." The apartment had changed. Soft creams and pale blues replaced the grays of fear. On the wall hung a framed quote, "What tried to break you built your wings instead." "It feels like home now," she said. Mason nodded. "And work? You're still designing?" Claire's eyes brightened. "Actually, yes. I took a few freelance projects, small office spaces. It feels good to create again." She paused, her voice softening. "For a while I thought I'd never work again. He made me believe I was useless without him." Mason's gaze was steady. "That's how control works. But look at you. You're building again." Before she could reply, Grace began to fuss. Mason picked her up carefully, bouncing her in his arms. "Hey, little one, your mom's tougher than she looks, huh?" Claire smiled, warmth flooding her chest. Watching him with her daughter felt natural, peaceful, something she hadn't realized she'd missed. That afternoon, Tori came by with a new magazine. "Guess who's on the cover of Architect's Digest?" she teased, tossing it onto the table. Claire blinked. The headline read, "From Survivor to Creator, Claire Donovan's Designs of Renewal." Beneath it was a photo of her in her studio, Grace asleep beside her laptop. "Tori, what is this?" Tori grinned. "You're trending again, but this time for something beautiful. They love your story and your work." Claire flipped through the pages. The article described how she used reclaimed wood and soft light to symbolize second chances. Every line carried hope, not pity. Mason leaned over her shoulder. "You realize this is the first article with your name on it that doesn't mention his." Claire smiled. "Then maybe I finally exist on my own terms." They spent the evening talking and laughing. For once no one mentioned courtrooms or scandals. The city outside hummed softly, the streets glowing under warm streetlights. When Mason left, Claire walked him to the door. "You've done more for me than you know," she said. He shook his head. "You did it yourself. I just reminded you how strong you already were." As the door closed, Claire looked around the apartment. Her art sketches pinned to the walls, Grace sleeping soundly, a half-finished mug of tea beside her. Everything was ordinary, yet extraordinary. Later she sat by the window, watching Manhattan's skyline shimmer across the river. The same skyline that once represented pain now felt like a promise. She whispered, "We're not surviving anymore, baby. We're living." Outside, the first blossoms appeared on the trees lining the street. The world was still imperfect, but for the first time Claire didn't need perfection. She had peace, purpose, and a little girl who smiled in her sleep. And in that quiet, illuminated apartment, under the soft hum of the city, Claire Donovan realized that light doesn't erase the darkness. It grows from it. The evening air over Brooklyn carried a golden calm that made the world seem brand new. Claire was standing in front of her mirror, trying on a navy blue dress she hadn't touched in years. Grace slept peacefully in her crib, a faint hum of lullabies playing from the phone on the dresser. Tonight wasn't about business or revenge or survival. It was about living again. Mason had invited her to a charity gala for women entrepreneurs at the plaza. "You don't have to come," he'd said, smiling in that gentle, patient way of his. "But it's full of people who believe in what you're doing now. You might even find investors for your studio." At first, Claire hesitated. For years, fancy events meant manipulation, a stage where Lucas had paraded her as an accessory. But tonight felt different. She wasn't someone's silent shadow anymore. She was walking into that ballroom as her own story. When she arrived, the chandeliers glowed like constellations. Waiters glided between tables with champagne, laughter filled the air, and for once, luxury didn't feel like a cage. It felt like victory. Mason found her near the entrance. He looked different in a tuxedo, still kind but effortlessly confident. "You came," he said, smiling wide. "I almost didn't," she admitted, glancing around. "But I figured the woman in the mirror deserved to try again." He handed her a glass of sparkling water. "Then let's toast to second beginnings." They walked through the crowd together, meeting investors, designers, and other women who had built their dreams from ashes. Claire shared her vision for her new design studio, Grace Interiors, explaining how she wanted to create spaces that healed the people living in them. Her voice was steady, full of quiet conviction. Halfway through the night, the event organizer called Mason to the stage. "Dr. Mason Green," she announced, "for his contributions to women's health initiatives and emotional recovery programs." Applause filled the room. Mason gave a brief, heartfelt speech, ending with, "Healing isn't about forgetting what broke us. It's about learning to build again, with the cracks still visible." His eyes found Claire in the crowd as he said it, and for a moment, it felt like the room disappeared. Later, they stepped out onto the balcony overlooking Central Park. The city glowed below, the hum of traffic soft and distant. Claire exhaled, her breath turning to mist. "You're really good at this, making people believe again." Mason leaned against the railing. "I don't make people believe. I just remind them they still can." Silence settled between them, warm and unhurried. Then he said softly, "You know, when I first met you, I saw someone terrified of disappearing. Now you light up every room you walk into." She smiled. "You were part of that light." He hesitated, then asked, "Claire, when you look at your future now, do you still see him in it?" She shook her head slowly. "No, he's just a lesson I've already learned. You're what came after the lesson." Mason's voice dropped, almost a whisper. "I want to be more than what came after." Claire felt her heart flutter, the kind of fear that wasn't about danger, but possibility. She met his eyes, then stopped standing so far away. He stepped closer, close enough that the city's glow shimmered between them. "Are you sure?" "For the first time," she said, smiling, "I'm completely sure." He kissed her then, soft, steady, full of everything that had been broken and rebuilt. When they finally pulled apart, Claire whispered, "You know what's funny? I thought love was supposed to feel like fireworks, but this feels like breathing." Mason smiled. "That's because real love doesn't explode, it stays." Below them, the lights of Manhattan flickered like a heartbeat, steady and alive. Claire leaned into his shoulder and whispered, "We made it to the light." The year later, New York shimmered under spring sunlight. The city had moved on, as cities always do, but for Claire Donovan, time no longer meant survival. It meant life. Grace had just turned 1. Her laughter filled their new apartment overlooking the East River, a home built not from wealth, but from peace. The morning began with coffee, sunlight, and giggles. Grace toddled between the living room and her crib, clutching a soft stuffed fox. Claire watched her, heart full, when her phone buzzed. The message came from Tori. "It's official. He's been sentenced." Claire exhaled, steady and calm. The news had been coming for weeks. She turned on the TV. The anchor's voice carried the final chapter of the story that once consumed her life. Former CEO Lucas Hale has been sentenced to 12 years in federal prison for securities fraud, perjury, and obstruction of justice. The court cited his abuse of power and moral misconduct as aggravating factors. Hale issued no public statement, but sources confirm he refused appeal. The screen shifted to footage from the courthouse. Lucas, thinner, hair streaked with gray, stood silent as the sentence was read. No arrogance, no denial, just emptiness. For a moment, Claire felt the ache of old memories. Then she turned off the TV. She whispered to Grace, "It's done, sweetheart. The story's over." Later that day, Mason stopped by with lunch, salads and cupcakes from their favorite cafe. Grace squealed the moment she saw him, her tiny arms reaching for his. Mason laughed. "She's officially my favorite person." Claire grinned. "I'll try not to take that personally." They ate by the window, sunlight glinting off the river. Mason studied her quietly. "How do you feel?" "Peaceful," she said after a pause. "Not happy for his punishment, just relieved it's finally finished. I don't want revenge to be part of my story anymore." He nodded. "It isn't. It ended the moment you chose to build, instead of break." She smiled, setting her coffee aside. Speaking of building, Grace Interiors just got its first corporate contract. A wellness firm in Manhattan wants a redesign focused on emotional healing. They said my story inspired them. Mason beamed. "Of course it did. You turned pain into purpose." Before he could say more, Tori burst through the door, waving a newspaper. "Front page again, and not for scandal this time." She read aloud, "Claire Donovan's Designs of Renewal, Creating Spaces That Heal." Claire laughed. "You're turning me into a headline again." Because you are one, Tori said, grinning. You're the story people needed after the chaos. They toasted with coffee cups and cupcakes. Grace babbled happily between them, the sound of joy filling the apartment. As the sun began to set, Mason leaned on the balcony railing, watching the light reflect on the water. Claire joined him, the breeze lifting strands of her hair. It feels strange, she said, to not be running, to just be. He took her hand gently. That's what freedom feels like. It's quiet, it's steady. She looked at him, smiling softly, and it's standing right next to me. He kissed her forehead, his voice low. Here's to everything ahead. Below them, the city lights flickered to life, Manhattan glowing gold, Brooklyn humming softly. The same skyline that once bore witness to betrayal now shimmered with redemption. Claire whispered to her daughter, now dozing in her stroller, "You were born in the storm, but you'll grow up in the light." As night settled, she closed her eyes and breathed in the calm. For the first time, the story didn't hurt. It healed. And somewhere beyond the river, the echo of justice faded, replaced by laughter, warmth, and love that promised to last forever. So, that's how our story comes to an end. You're still here, aren't you? If you've made it this far, something in Claire's journey must have touched your heart in a quiet, personal way. Maybe it's the strength she found after being broken, or the way she rebuilt her life one breath at a time. Her story isn't just about revenge. It's about healing, about choosing peace over pain. You know, the Stoics used to say, "What stands in the way becomes the way." Marcus Aurelius wrote that every obstacle can lead us closer to wisdom if we let it. Claire's pain didn't destroy her, it transformed her. And maybe that's the real message here. No matter what breaks you, you can turn it into something beautiful if you don't let it define you. So if tonight you're watching this and feeling lost, remember, you can begin again, right now. You don't have to have it all figured out to start healing. If this story spoke to you, please like the video, share it with someone who might need hope, and don't forget to subscribe. We're building a community for hearts that refuse to give up. You belong here, with us.